Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out ProRevenge. Story 1. I secretly trained my roommate to not respond to his morning alarms. Reposting from a post I made in r/amethysthole. I was in college, senior. My roommate was a sophomore, but it was his first time living in a dorm. He'd been a pretty lousy roommate, constantly left the room a mess, left his stuff on my side of the room and on my bed, stole my alcohol, used my shit without permission, never clean up my dishes after he used them, and a bunch of other stuff. I confronted him about all these issues on several occasions and got the resident advisor involved with the alcohol stealing issue because at the time, he was under 21. Things still continued anyways. He asked me once if it was okay if his girl spent the night, which I said no. We were in the middle of a pandemic, plus that's especially weird if I was there. I also had to wake up every day at 8 for work, which he knew, and he would stay up until 2 AM playing video games some nights. Not to mention, he would set like 10 alarms in the morning with a bunch of different alarm tones. I hit a breaking point and decided to do something cruel. Every morning when I woke up, I'd observe his alarm pattern and how he'd respond. He had several alarms that he'd ignore, all with the same sound. He had a couple half-hour alarms that had a unique sound, also ignored, and then the final alarm had its own sound too. All of them were default iPhone sounds. So his brain had been trained to this alarm pattern for a while, I'd assumed. So I started step 1 of the punishment, set up a sequence of alarms on my phone, identical to his sequence, but an hour early. He responded to my alarms the exact same way he'd respond to his own. I kept this up for a week, and his brain was eventually retrained to sleep through double the amount of alarms as before. Then, phase 2 kicked in, random inconsistencies in my alarm pattern. Some days I'd play all the alarms, while other days I'd only play one that his brain was trained to ignore. That way, his brain expects to sleep through like 20 alarms and only ever hears 11. He slept through his alarm at least 4 times in 2 weeks. Eventually he finally changed his alarm pattern so he'd only have one alarm and he no longer had the energy to stay up until 2 AM. TLDR, I psychologically tortured my roommate by throwing off how his brain responds to his alarm clock because he was stealing booze and was a shitty roommate. Story 2. How I got revenge on my realtor after I was tricked into a 1-year buyer agency contract, who had no intention of helping us buy a home. TL/DR at bottom. My husband and I met with the top realtor that a very popular agency had to offer. We saved for 2 years and we ready for a home. He was confident, encouraging, and made us feel like he could get us into our dream home. We reviewed financials with him and he saw we each had Tier 1 credit, both scores over 800, plus we had enough saved for a conventional loan. He was clearly so happy because he could smell that commission check. He brought out the contract. We discussed the buyer/agency contract, which didn't seem like a big deal because we were very serious about buying. We also knew most realtors did this, so it wasn't alarming. In case you don't know, this contract is standardly a 3-month contract stating that you will not buy/rent/lease any property without the realtor getting their fair commission, and if you go behind their back with someone else, they will be entitled to a percentage of whatever property you purchase. The clause he failed to mention/we missed, this was a 1-year contract. We weren't worried at first, because again, we were sure to be buying a property. Let me tell you, when we told him the price range we were looking, about $150,000 under what the bank approved us for, he became completely upset and defensive. Why are you dropping your standards? Don't you have any dying relatives who could co-sign, so you can get the house paid off quicker? I don't want to show you houses in that area. Etc. He saw that large commission check vanish before his eyes. We continued to stay in touch because what option did we have? We were contractually committed to buying a home through him and only him for the next year. We sent him links to many houses, asking when we can see them. He would take a week or 2 to respond back, and when my dream home slipped through my fingers due to his delays, I had enough. I politely asked if he would relinquish us from the contract, as we clearly had different goals. I apologized for being upset, but I told him why. I said I didn't feel like he was making us a priority and I would rather hire someone private. His response? Well, I'll be running your financials for the next year to see if you buy/lease/rent anything. I'd reread that contract you signed and find a lawyer. Then he cut communication. I complained to the agency and they said try and work it out with the realtor himself. When I told them I already tried, they brought up the contract. I said I was going to speak to a lawyer about the contract, they laughed and said good luck. The lawyer informed me it could drain our account going against the agency and we made the painful decision to wait him out the full year. Saving a lot more money in the meantime. The contract ends and we find our perfect first home, above the original price we were approved for, and with the most amazing realtors we have ever met. During closing day at the realtor's office, the sellers of our home used the popular agency we just escaped from. Our previous realtor watched in the hallway as we signed for a house almost $150,000 more than we would have bought from him. Exactly 1 month after our contract was up. He scrambled to find the now expired contract because he was sure that he was about to win. I know a lot of people at the office were talking about it. Realtors let us know what had happened after we left. It made me feel good to watch the horror on his face through the conference room windows as his superior told him to go home due to his frantic behavior. Apparently, he had been using company time and expenses to check on our financials weekly throughout the year in order to catch an easy check through a broken contract. There was no confrontation between us directly, but I definitely feel like we won that one. I looked on their company website and his name has been removed from their listed agents. TL/DR, realtor tricked us into a 1-year contract and refused to show us houses we wanted, used company time and resources to monitor our financial status hoping we would break our contract and buy through someone else so he could get a percentage of the property we bought. He presumably lost his job due to this and had to watch as we signed for a home $150,000 over our original price range, where he received no commission. Story 3. Thieving manager tries to frame me for their theft, it doesn't go well for them. I'm a long-time peruser of this subreddit but have never posted this story because every time I think to, I am busy or on my mobile. It's a longish story so I always put it off but I have the time now. Teal deer at the bottom. Parties involved. This story happened around 6 years ago, when I worked for a retail company I will call no OP. Jay was well known to be a thief by the base staff and some of the lower levels of management. Unfortunately, she was a golden girl to Mo and Travis and we never had any solid proof. We also didn't get paid docked etc. unless it was over a certain amount, which it never was, so staff never had a real incentive to try and find proof. One of Jay's favorite things to steal were vouchers for money off products or shopping because you were just supposed to rip them up and put them in the safe. There was no official way of counting these to return them to the company so she could use them again in a different store and get away with it. This particular day was Halloween and I was on till 4, the only till with no cameras on it. Mo came up and paid for her shopping with some gift vouchers she had received at a store manager's meeting because the store was doing really well. I served her and no one else touched my till all day because I was the main person on the tills for this shift. We closed up for the night and Jay took the registers to be cashed up. I went out to the pub with friends and had a good night not knowing what was coming. The next shift I'm on, Mo calls me into the office and tells me that the vouchers she used were not in the safe and she knew that it was my till. She wanted me to return the vouchers and would not press charges or put anything on my file if I just returned them immediately. I of course did not have them and testified as such but she didn't believe me. I went looking everywhere. The bin under till 4 and the bins outside, under the tills and on the floors around the tills, just in case I had dropped them or put them somewhere dumb while trying to sort out cash etc. Roughly an hour later Jay comes in, hears what's going on and offers to look as well. She finds them in 30 seconds flat somewhere I had already looked. I essentially hissed out what a coincidence that as soon as Jay looks there she finds it immediately. How coincidental. seething with white fury as I knew she was now framing me for her own theft. She could have found them in the office and made it a simple mistake, but no, she made me the fall guy for her own idiocy. I tried to plead my case to Mo and Travis, stating that I wouldn't be dumb enough to steal vouchers that I knew were Mo's because I was the one who served her. One of the other team leaders, Paul, knew fine and well it was Jay and tried to tell Mo and Travis that I was being set up, but she was the golden girl and could do no wrong while my name was mud as far as they were concerned. Heck, they thought Jay had caught me in the act. This meant war. Over the next few months I got really friendly with Jay, flirting outrageously with her and basically pretending like I really respected her and that we were good buddies. It took me a while to work my way into her trust, but once I was there I knew I could catch her stealing and prove it. We wasted off a load of Christmas chocolate products that hadn't sold and I put them in a bag to be put in the bin. Jay said we should take them home, against company policy and seen as stealing, because they were just going to waste otherwise. We were stood underneath a camera, just outside of its range, so I said I don't want any, but if you want them you can have them, and put them on a trolley just inside of the camera's range. I had studied the camera angles in great detail, preparing for a moment exactly like this. I saw her look at the camera, down at the trolley and back to the camera before walking off to get her stuff. I warned my colleagues not to take any of the chocolate even if offered and had an evil grin on my face which my colleagues commented on. When Jay came down she nonchalantly picked up the bag as if it was her shopping, offered chocolate to everyone and walked out the door with it. Gotcha bitch! The next morning I arrived for my shift and put on the most somber face possible as I approached Travis. You should check the cameras on the back door at approximately 22:21, I think you'll find what you see very interesting. He asked me to explain further and I looked over towards where Jay was, not even 5 meters away, and looked back. I can't go into further detail right now, but I would strongly suggest you go and look at the cameras for that time now. Travis begrudgingly walked off to do just that, and within 10 minutes Jay was called into the office and her bag was searched. Within the hour she was suspended pending investigation, and within the week she was fired and barred from the store. I got a full apology from the managers who didn't believe me, who explained they genuinely believed it was me and had no idea Jay could have possibly been a thief. Their jaws hit the floor after I explained that every member of staff knew she was a thief but that we didn't feel like we could do anything about it. After going around asking people if this was true, I got another apology. 6 months later I was offered training to become a team leader myself. I took it but ended up quitting for a white-collar role in a different company before I finished my training. DRA team leader tried to frame me for her own theft, so I spent the next 3 months in a solo sting operation to catch her stealing in a way I could take to management and prove it was her. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.